Hello, baseball fans. The offseason is officially upon us, and we've got some things to talk about. How about qualifying offers? How about free agents? How about awards?
How about love, love, scuba, I gotta dig it down. I don't know.
Please like and subscribe. Qualifying offers were issued, 14 to be exact, which is a lot. The qualifying offer was set at $18.4 million, which if you didn't know is set by the average of the salaries of the top 125 highest paid players in baseball. 13 players decided they'll test the free agent market, while Brandon Belt accepted the offer from the Giants and heads back to San Francisco. Among those to reject their qualifying offers are Marcus Semien, Trevor Story, Freddie Freeman, Carlos Correa, Nick Castellanos, who opted out of his contract and rejected the Reds' qualifying offer, Michael Conforto, Chris Taylor, Corey Seager, Justin Verlander has re-signed with the Astros, Eduardo Rodriguez is now a member of the Detroit Tigers, Noah Syndergaard is now an Angel, Robbie Ray, and Raisel Iglesias. Of course, we should touch on the Clayton Kershaw situation, one, because he didn't receive a qualifying offer, and two, because it works as a nice transition into talking about the Dodgers, which is something I want to do. I think what Andrew Freeman came out and said, that the Dodgers didn't want to rush Kershaw into making a decision, is true in this case. He's already had a Hall of Fame career with this team, who drafted him in 2006, and the Dodgers wouldn't have achieved the run of success they did over the last decade without him. Now, there's obviously the possibility that the Dodgers don't want to pay him because they have the most knowledge about the toll the injuries he's amassed over the last 6 years have taken. Obviously, the most concerning being the flexor strain he sustained last year that limited him to 22 starts and kept him out of the postseason. And yes, Kershaw hasn't started more than 28 games in a season since 2015, but that hasn't stopped him from accruing the 7th most F-WAR and 4th most B-WAR over that span. I want to see him stay a Dodger. I think a lot of people do too. But here in LA, I know a lot of people who say just the craziest things about Clayton Kershaw. That he needs to try harder, that he's washed up, that he's fat, he's not in the best shape, but people say he doesn't care. These are all real quotes said by friends of mine. I don't think these people consider how much throwing nearly 2,500 innings at the pro level wears on a body, and that doesn't include the playoffs, minor leagues, high school, travel. Well, everything he's done before that too. But I think the biggest fault they have when talking about Kershaw is that they're comparing current day Kershaw to prime Kershaw. Yes, his ERA over the last 3 years starts with a 3, it's 3.06. And that is exactly one full run higher than his ERA was over the 6 years before that, it was 2.06. But the 3.06 is still the 7th lowest ERA in baseball over the last 3 years among starting pitchers with at least 350 innings pitched, which by the way is only 46 pitchers. Only 46 pitchers have thrown 350 innings over the last 3 years, and Kershaw's one of them. Meanwhile, his FIP of 3.48 is the 13th best. So no, he's not the best starting pitcher in baseball anymore. But the disrespect put on his name by too many Dodgers fans is crazy. Because of this, whatever other family, personal motivations he has that would lead him away from Los Angeles, I wouldn't blame him if he went elsewhere, but I hope he stays.
And this is a case of really respecting a player who's done a lot for your organization rather than a sound financial decision. And the Dodgers don't usually operate under that premise, but this is special circumstance. It's Clayton Kershaw, and he should be a Dodger.
Now, the Dodgers should be interesting to watch this offseason. They'll also need to spend because they're losing a lot of firepower. Chris Taylor, Corey Seager, Joe Kelly, Kenley Jansen are also hitting free agency this year, and no one knows what's to become of Trevor Bauer, though he obviously opted into his contract for the 2022 season. Hard to say who's going to be back out of the 4. It seems like they should re-sign Kenley. You can find a cheaper bullpen arm and who's just as good as Joe Kelly probably. Though he's good, I'm not saying he's not good. And he looks damn good in a mariachi suit.
If Corey Seager isn't in the Dodgers' future plans, they've already acquired themselves a replacement in Trey Turner. And if Seager is in their plans, and the DH does come to the National League, for the love of everything good, please let that happen. Justin Turner could spend more time as a designated hitter. Corey Seager could slide over to third base, which is probably where he'll end up in a couple seasons anyways, as his defense has taken a sharp downturn over the past several years.
Chris Taylor's also been a huge piece for the team, and they've lost similar but not quite as productive players over the past couple years in Jock Peterson and Enrique Hernandez. I guess Enrique Hernandez is more comparable, but they both had great playoff runs this year. Just to give Taylor a little love, over his Dodgers tenure, Taylor played every position except for catcher and first base, appearing in 120 games at second, 35 at third, 177 at shortstop and in left, 186 games in center, and 11 in right. And that was all while hitting 15% better than the league average hitter, compiling 19 homers, 12 stolen bases, and 3.4 FWAR per 162 games. On a per-game basis, per 162, he's been more valuable than players like Tim Anderson, Nick Castellanos, and Kyle Schwarber. A part of that is because the Dodgers do pick his matchups, and they maximize his value, but at the same time, 2019 was the only year he averaged under 3.8 plate appearances per game. This guy wasn't coming out late in games, his bat and glove play. You know, maybe the Dodgers have their next super utility guy in McKinstry or Lux, or someone they don't have yet that they'll pluck from someone else's farm system and turn into an annual 3-WAR player. But people should know Chris Taylor has been a fantastic Major League Baseball player and an important cog in a really successful Dodgers team. Speaking of the Dodgers, they have already made an addition as well, adding Southpaw Andrew Heaney as a back of the rotation, like 5th, 6th guy / bullpen guy on a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. It's nothing to the Dodgers. This move has been laughed at by a lot of casual baseball fans. Go look, the MLB TR, the trade rumors comment section. It's just a horrible place. It's one of the top 5 worst places on the internet. Pornhub has a nicer comment section than Major League Baseball trade rumors. But people there think Heaney is a Kershaw replacement and that he's a terrible Major League pitcher. One, he's not a Kershaw replacement. He's dead. And he's not a terrible Major League pitcher, but he has not had great results over the last 3 years. Andrew Heaney boasts premium stuff, having posted the 16th best swinging strike rate in the major leagues from 2018 to 2021 with a minimum of 450 innings pitched. The same swinging strike rate as Trevor Bauer. Essentially, Trevor was at 12.7 and Heaney at 12.6. And a better swinging strike rate than pitchers like Charlie Morton, Aaron Nola, and teammate Walker Buehler. Now I know swings and misses aren't everything, obviously, but it is the best possible outcome on a pitch. I know that. The problem is when hitters don't swing and miss, they've been able to put a lot of balls over the fence. He's got the 5th worst home runs per 9 over that span, the 2018 through 2021 450 innings pitched parameters. But if there's a team that could maximize the value of a player, we have to give the Dodgers the benefit of the doubt at this point. But that's probably entirely too much about the Dodgers for what is supposed to be an all MLB encompassing video. And they're not the only team to make a significant addition early this offseason. The Tigers, for one, inked the aforementioned Eduardo Rodriguez to a 5-year deal, relinquishing a 2nd-round pick and I believe some international money in the process. I thought every team should be in on Rodriguez, and I'm sure he wasn't lacking for suitors, but the Tigers were simply the most aggressive. In Rodriguez, the Tigers are getting a guy who's been good for a long time and who's still going to only be 29 next season. He's probably a guy who will see his ERA shrink in Detroit, as the park is much more pitcher-friendly than Fenway. The defense in Detroit has been better than Boston's, and the division boasts a overall weaker offensive environment. For example, as a Red Sox, the teams he faced had a WRC plus of 103, and in the Central, on the Tigers, he'll be facing teams with a WRC plus cumulatively of 98. Eduardo is a pitcher who does everything average or better. He avoids hard contact. He's got well above average K and walk rates. He gives up less than the average amount of home runs per 9. What more do you want, man? All his ERA estimators over the last 3 seasons have been well below his ERA of 4.11. They sit in the 3.61 to 3.94 range. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him post an ERA in the 3.3 to 3.7 range over the next year or several. As for the Tigers, this doesn't necessarily open the door of contention, though it is a statement signing, and they're apparently not done adding, as they've been linked to the big shortstops of this free agent class. Like I said, I don't think it means that they'll necessarily compete in 2022, although their record from May through the end of the season last year was 69-66, which was the 2nd best record in the Central. You can see how a couple of free agent additions, plus the arrival of top prospects Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, and the return of Spencer Turnbull could put them in a great position in 2023, which is the year that Miguel Cabrera comes off the books. So as a Tigers fan, I think you got a lot to be excited about finally. Kind of felt for a while there like it'd be the rebuild that would never end, but it looks like the end is near. In a good way. Meanwhile, let's hop over to the AL West. About 9 miles from me
The Angels signified that they finally received the memo that they need starting pitching last June when they took only pitchers in the amateur draft. Now, the Angels have brought in Noah Syndergaard on a one-year $20 million deal. It's a weird move, but it's not unlike what the Angels' typical MO has been with regards to bringing in pitching over the last 3 years. And what I mean by that is, over the last 3 years, they've brought in bounce-back candidates or guys the market has been low on. For example, in 2019, they brought in Trevor Cahill and Matt Harvey and reliever Cody Allen. In 2020, they brought in Dylan Bundy through a trade, and they had him for 2 years, and Julio Teheran. And in 2021, they brought in Alex Cobb, Jose Quintana, and then Raisel Iglesias, Steve Kishek, Alex Claudio, and Tony Watson. All told, the starting pitchers they brought in contributed a 5.69 ERA, 1.41 WHIP, and a 1.61 homers per nine, and a 496.3 innings pitched. The relievers fared much better, though a lot of that is carried by Raisel Iglesias' great 2021. They contributed a 3.93 ERA, 1.33 WHIP, and a 1.23 homer per nine over 227 innings pitched. Essentially, the Angels have been rolling the dice and coming up pretty empty. And with Noah Syndergaard, a guy who's coming off a bumpy Tommy John recovery, a guy who wasn't allowed to throw breaking balls at the end of last year, and a guy whose average fastball was down about 3 miles per hour, and who also missed most of 2017 with a torn lat, is still a huge gamble because of the $23 million price tag. But the reward could be that much better because it is Noah Syndergaard, and he's got the ability to be a top 15 pitcher in baseball. He's got a career 3.32 ERA and a 26.4 K rate compared to a measly 5.6 walk rate. And he limits home runs to a tune of 0.8 homers per nine. His dominant run was from 2015 to 18 when he posted 2.93, 1.13 WHIP with a 2.66 FIP and 573 Ks, 116 walks and 518 and a third innings. But, this is the guy the Angels signed, and he's thrown 199 and 2/3 innings over the last 3 years with a 4.33 ERA. Those FIP has still been a tidy 3.64. It's kind of what the Angels have to do, and they can't be done spending with Pujols coming off the books and Raisel rejecting the qualifying offer, which, I imagine that they're thankful for because having Albert come off the books and then immediately allocating over $40 million to just a one starter and one reliever would pretty much do nothing for the Angels next season. But they have the money. There's still at least $30 million to get back to where they were last year. They're going to need another arm to pair with Syndergaard and Ohtani at the top of the rotation, and I don't think they'll stray too far from the desire to minimize the length of their obligation. There's more roll the dice guys like Kluber, Paxton, and go a little longer with Rodon and Scherzer. And the next tier down would include guys like Greinke or Rich Hill, maybe Michael Pineda. It also wouldn't hurt to throw a couple million at a guy like Aaron Sanchez. The problem with this roster is that they'll still need another infielder because Rengifo and Fletcher currently make up half of the positions on the dirt, and that's not ideal. It'd also be nice to see them grab an outfielder as insurance because Adele and Marsh are still huge question marks, far from locks to play every day. And Mike Trout has only played 63% of the Angels' games from 2017 to 2021. You don't want to be stuck playing Upton every day at this point, and Taylor Ward has been an okay major league hitter, but probably is not an everyday player either. And you know what? While we're making the roster feel hopeless, let's not forget to mention that Rendon is another injury-riddled season away from making yet another Moreno free agent signing look absolutely ridiculous. In fact, there are some infamous baseball curses, Red Sox and Cubs obviously, but no one talks about the Angels, and I don't know what it is. The curse of Buddy the Clubby. That's probably not fair to Buddy, but here's hoping Noah and the Angels have a productive, successful union. Another pitcher that Angels were likely targeting, Justin Verlander, is reuniting with the reigning AL champs, Houston Astros, on a 2-year, $50 million deal. It's actually a 1-year, $25 million deal with a player option for the second. It's a lot of money for a 39-year-old pitcher coming off of Tommy John. He could get hurt again, and they'd have to pay him $50 million over the next 2 years because he could opt in and throw 10 innings over the next 2 years for $50 million. But, reports of his bullpen have been positive. He's been hitting 96, and it's only November. So far be it from me to question Justin Verlander and the Astros at this point. And lest I not forget, the world champion Braves have done a lot to solidify their roster for 2022, adding Manny Pina on a 2-year, $8 million deal. I'm kidding, because Pina's been a low-key productive catcher. He's generally been around 10% worse than the league average hitter, which is about average for catcher, but he provides awesome defense, and he'll pair with the oft-injured Travis d'Arnaud for a productive catching unit. So those are the significant signings we've seen so far, and there'll be plenty more with well over 200 free agents out on the market. Players might be itching to sign deals before the CBA talks reach a boiling point, And that's inevitable since the players actually have some leverage this year, and the owner's recent proposal, at least the parts that I read, looks pretty lame. And at this point, they're probably still moving further apart. Now let's shift gears at least a little bit. I want to highlight a couple free agents who, at least by the contract estimates I've been seeing, are over and underrated. Meaning if I was a GM, there's a player I would steer clear from and one I would target. Overrated. Javi Baez. I love Javi Baez. My dad grew up in Chicago, huge Cubs fan. We all cried in 2016 when the Cubs won. It was awesome. But I've seen contract estimates as high as $20 million a year for 4 years for Javi. While he's easily been worth that over the last 4 years, if I'm a GM, I'm not going longer than 2 years. In Javi, you've got an absolutely otherworldly, electric, superlative athlete who, when I watch his highlights, makes me want to immediately negate everything I'm about to say about him. But his skill set does not seem long for this league. And of course, I'm mainly speaking about his plate discipline skills. His K rate has increased year over year from 2018 to 2021, starting at 25.9% and climbing all the way to 33.6% this year. In the 3rd percentile in K rate and the 6th percentile for walk rate. That elite level athleticism he has allows him to barrel balls and reach high max exit velocities. He can leg out hits because his sprint speed is so good, and his glove is premium at shortstop and second base. But the fact remains that from 2018 through 2021, he walked 92 times and struck out 582 times over 1,988 plate appearances. That's a 4.6% walk rate and a 29.3% K rate. From that historical perspective, if we find seasons where a player has a walk rate under 6%, which is being generous, and a K rate above 25%, which is also generous, there have only been 15 seasons where a hitter has met those parameters and has been above league average. Now, unsurprisingly, 9 of those seasons have happened in the past 4 years, and the list is not devoid of quality players. You've got Eloy Jimenez's rookie season, Rafael Devers' short in 2020, and even Sal Perez's power-laden 2021. 3 of them are Javi. Now, thanks to tools like StatCast, we understand where the trade-off is between strikeouts, walks, and hard contact, but Javi is really walking a fine line as his K rate continued to climb above 30%. Even more worrisome is that his whiff rate on fastballs continues to climb. In 2018, it was 26.6, and it's also climbed each year, ending at 35.3% in this past season. That 35.3 represented the 6th worst in baseball for players who saw at least 400 fastballs. That's a higher whiff rate on fastballs than Joey Gallo. But we all know Joey Gallo's career walk rate is 15%. And look, maybe I'm completely wrong. He's been very durable. His base running and fielding make his floor higher than most, even though speed and defense are the first to go. It just seems like a highly volatile profile to invest $80 million in. Let's say he loses a step or tries to play through an injury. His bat drops 20 points. We're talking about a guy who goes from 3 WAR to 2 WAR. I'm not paying $20 million a year for a 2 WAR player if I'm trying to win. And of course, all that being said, back to my original point, he's so exciting. He's good for baseball, and he's entertaining as hell, and so from that standpoint, he deserves it. Whatever. Let's go on to underrated. And it's Michael Conforto. In the history of baseball, how many players have accrued 2,500 plate appearances over their age 22 through 28 seasons, walked at least 12% of the time, and had an isolated slugging over 200? Well, the list is only 54 players long, and that list includes Michael Conforto. From this free agent class, there is another player who also is on that list of 54 players. And here's a blind comparison between Michael Conforto and a player who we'll call Player B. Michael Conforto is projected to earn $17 million over 1 year. Player B is projected to earn $15 million over the next 4 years. The thinking here being that Michael Conforto will rebuild his value. If we look at the overall production through their age 22 through 28 seasons, we see that Michael Conforto has been the better player. Got a better triple slash. He's got a better weighted runs created plus. He's been better on the bases. He's been better at defense. He's contributed more WAR. He does not hit the ball quite as hard as Player B, but he has a comparable walk rate and strikes out less. You may have guessed it, but Player B is Kyle Schwarber. Now, Conforto battled hamstring issues in COVID in 2021, but posted a 106 WRC plus over 25 games. Kyle Schwarber also battled an injury in 2021, but posted a 145 WRC plus over 113 games, and had a great run in the postseason, and has done so before with the Cubs. The career numbers and age are so similar that I just don't see how there's a $43 million difference in guaranteed money between the two players. This isn't a knock on Schwarber. I just think the disparity in guaranteed money is a little bit incongruous. When you dive a little deeper into Conforto's numbers, you can see that after he returned from hamstring issues, his numbers ticked up quite a bit during the second half of the season. Over the first half, he had a 90 WRC plus, an OPS of 639 with an ISO under 100. But in the second half, he looked a lot like Michael Conforto with a 792 OPS, 193 ISO, and a 118 WRC plus. Furthermore, going back to the historical comps, we're picking from that list of 54 players. We can look at guys that produce similar numbers to Michael Conforto over their 22 through 28 seasons and look what they did the 4 following years after, just to keep the contract length the same as Schwarber. You can look at Pat Burrell, Troy Gloss, Bob Allison, and Jason Bay. From 22 through 28, that group produced a 262, 363, 494 slash, and a 123 WRC plus. And from 29 to 32, they produced a 257, 365, 477 triple slash, and a 124 WRC plus. Remember again that WRC plus is park adjusted. So I'd gladly take Conforto on a discounted 1-year deal for him to rebuild his value if the market is truly low on him because of his 2021. And I'd gladly take him at the same rate as Schwarber over the next 4 years. And remember when I say overrated and underrated, I'm just talking about how the market might shape up for these guys. I think in the public eye, teams will be clamoring for Javi Baez. I think it might be a little suppressed just because of the uncertainty regarding how his profile will age. And I think Conforto could possibly get a lot more money than people think he's going to get as well. Also, don't sleep on Mark Canha. Don't sleep on Mark Canha. Don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on Mark Canha. There was one big piece of news out of the AL East, and that is that Jose Berrios signed a 7-year extension with the Blue Jays as they gear up for what should be a very productive run in the AL East, although the AL East is as competitive as ever. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. He was already a piece in place for the Blue Jays, and this video is getting long, so let us get to the awards. Let's go over the big 3. Rookie of the Year honors went to Jonathan India in the National League and Randy Arozarena in the AL. Jonathan India quietly put together a fantastic season leading all rookie hitters with nearly 4 WAR. He compiled his value with a refined approach at the plate and scratch defense by UZR and DRS, and he was awful by outs above average. He did a little bit of slugging, a little bit of running, bopping 21 homers and swiping 12 bags. He'd seen his prospect shine fade over the past couple years, but he showed he was every bit deserving of his prospectum this year. And in the AL, of course, the dudeliest dude to ever dude, the Cuban with the boots, Randy Rosarina. Felt weird to call Randy a rookie this year after what he did in last year's playoffs, but there he was with eligibility intact, posting a 2020 year while managing a batting line 28% better than league average. The already legendary postseason hitter's underlying metrics are a bit perplexing, however, as his expected numbers pegged him for a 220 average and a 366 slugging. The difference between his WOBA and ex-WOBA was .048, and that was the biggest difference in baseball. But this is something of a bit of a trend for Randy as he's outperformed his expected WOBA each year. And up to this point in his career, you have to say expected stats be damned. Though it is something to monitor moving forward, but congrats to the Rookies of the Year nonetheless. Cy Young! The NL Cy Young seemed like a foregone conclusion, and Corbin Burnes is your NL Cy Young. We all know the deal. Burnes added a cutter from hell in 2020 that he used 30% of the time and upped that again to 52% of the time in 2021. While scrapping his 4-seam. Among cutters, Corbin Burnes' cutter was the 3rd fastest in Major League Baseball, and that's for anyone who threw at least 10 cutters. The only 2 pitchers above him are known throughout even casual fandom just as flamethrowers. You've got Emmanuel Clase and Brusdar Graterol. Burnes' cutter had the 6th most horizontal movement, going 2.5 inches into left-handed batters, while his changeup dived 8 inches away. So you've got a separation of over 10 inches there. His average fastball was about 96 miles an hour, and his curveball is 81 miles an hour. So you also have to deal with 15 miles an hour difference in velocity. There's just so much that he can get you out with. Corbin Burnes' 2021, with regards to fielder independent pitching, is the single most impressive single season performance since Pedro Martinez's 1999. Yeah, you know how we speak about that season? Burnes is up there, baby. Since the turn of the century, there have only been 4 pitching seasons where a pitcher's had a FIP under 2. That'd be 2014 and 2015 Clayton Kershaw, hats off to the GOAT, 2018 Jacob deGrom, and 2021 Corbin Burnes. Just marvel at Burns' numbers with me. His home runs per 9 was .38, his ground ball percentage was almost 50%, his K rate was 35.6, and his walk rate was just 5.2. And look at that Savant page. I am weak in the knees. Absolutely monster year from Burns. He's a nasty, nasty boy. Over in the American League, Robbie Ray took home the hardware. Ray's improvement in walk rate was kind of a dream scenario for the lefty. He's always been a strikeout monster, but he was finally able to curb his proclivity to hand out free passes, and even though he still suffered his fair share of home runs, his run suppression was the best of his career. I can only find a few instances where starting pitchers made better improvements in walk rate since the year 2000. It'd be 2005 Brandon Webb, 2000-something Joel Pinheiro, 2006 Chris Capuano, and 2012 Clayton Richard. But look, none of those pitchers had the stuff that Ray has. It's just a great year for Ray. It was awesome timing as it happened in a contract year, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of gains he can keep in his walk rate next season. He'll need to keep him too, because he really was the beneficiary of some crazy good luck in 2021, as his BABIP allowed was only .268, and he stranded 90.1% of the runners he put on base. Comparing those with his career stats, he's got a .305 BABIP and a 76.9 left on base. It really was a combination of all things going right for Ray this year, but that's not taking anything away from his walk rate, improved velocity, and durability. He absolutely deserves to be the American League Cy Young.
MVP!
The MVP in the NL could have gone to any three of Harper, Tatis, and Soto, but Harper was victorious, and I am so happy he won another one, because the Bryce Harper is overrated conversation was getting so boring. Go look at Foolish Baseball's Bryce Harper is underrated video. It's awesome. All his videos are awesome. Bryce Harper /309, 429, 615 this year. OPSing over 1,000 for the third time in his career. Through his age 28 season, Harper now has 2 MVPs, 267 home runs, which is 17th most, 850 runs, 752 RBIs, and 43.3 career WAR, which is the 37th most through an age 28 season. He's still only going to be 29 next year. Bryce Harper is awesome. And you know who else is awesome? Shohei Ohtani. Sorry I saved this, but it's kind of a best for last. Listen to this. Only 4 players in history have had seasons in which they hit at least 45 homers, stole 25 bases, drove in and scored 100 runs. Barry Bonds in 1993, Larry Walker in 1997, Chipper Jones in 1999, and Shohei Ohtani in 2021. But none of those guys threw a single inning on the mound. I didn't check, but I imagine they didn't. Meanwhile, Shohei threw 133 1/3 innings on the mound, and they were in fact great. Only 30 pitchers have ever had a season of at least 130 innings pitched, a K rate over 29%, a walk rate under 9, and an ERA of 3.2 or less. I just don't think we can truly wrap our heads around what Shohei has done. His max exit velocity as a hitter was the 3rd highest in baseball at 119 miles an hour. That was tied with Aaron Judge. That's the 100th percentile. In terms of barrels per plate appearances, only Fernando Tatis Jr. had more. Sprint speed, he was in the 91st percentile with 28.8 feet per second. That's the same as Randy Arozarena and Trent Grisham. He had the 8th longest home run in the majors this season, and in terms of fastball velocity, his fastball was 95.7 miles an hour. That is the same as Corbin Burns and Charlie Morton. People have used the phrases to describe him like he's a video game cheat code. He's not from this world, and really that's the closest thing we're going to get to the truth about Shohei Ohtani's 2021. We're so lucky to be alive when Shohei is playing baseball. All in all, Ohtani's combined FWAR was 8.1. He added 8.3 innings in left field, where he would probably win a Gold Glove if he was ran out there every day. It is probably the most impressive baseball performance of all time. And I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again, even from Ohtani, who will remain great, but I don't see him ever again reaching these heights. So that's it. That's the first off-season update. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, just go ahead and like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me as I try to figure this out, get better at editing, get better at talking, blah, blah, blah. Love baseball. I know you love baseball too. A baseball. Baseball, a baseball.